Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. Welcome to something that is clearly not Unicorn Overlord, but it is related. So, anyways, let me go ahead and explain. So, around the time that I was going and playing Unicorn Overlord, there was specifically a moment when I was playing that game and also doing a sort of the usual thing of watching random historical tidbits in the background, and there's a build that I really liked in Kingsbane here, as well as something that was around for a little bit for One Vision, that really came to mind every time I used the Swordmaster in Unicorn Overlord. So, this was an idea, basically, in case there is ever a situation where there's mods or something down the line for UO. Maybe there's, who knows, maybe they do end up making a DLC or something. But there was an idea for a class that I was a little bit surprised not to see there, considering we have the hoplite and stuff like that already. But for those that have never looked into it, there was a time historically where pike and shot was a bit of a thing. That was quite a noise. Anyway, so basically there was this this period where guns became prevalent historically, and there were lots of attempts to counter guns and cavalry. Cavalry was always still around. I mean, being hit by a horse is going to hurt no matter what. But specifically, in order to try and counter a lot of the strategies of the day, the pike and shot strategy was developed, in which there were formations of pikemen set up behind formations of musketeers and such. Now, that being said, when it came to those pikes, a lot of times folks assumed that they just held the pikes out in order to catch enemies coming their way, and specifically, there was actually a really cool thing that they were doing there, in which technically, yeah, they would hold a pike out, but in reality, they actually kept essentially a sword on them, expecting to more or less deter something with the pike, and then as soon as something got close and or they got impaled, then they would end up switching over to a sword. That's why the Swordmaster kept reminding me of it, because imagine this as an idea for a class, right? So you've got your, you basically take a similar loadout idea to the Swordmaster, except you go for spear and sword. You essentially have a unit that is a more dedicated anti-cavalry than the current soldier and sergeant, who, let's be honest, they're not necessarily that great versus cavalry. Most of the time you're just going to use your flyers for that, right? And to an extent, dude, I hear you, the Wyvern Knight basically does a lot of this stuff, but just hear me out. So, you have your spear unit, right? They got their spear, they will hold it in front of them, they will attempt to go and stab any incoming cavalry. So, they get a priority attack specifically versus cavalry, and additionally, have essentially as a nod to something that they probably should have done with the hoplite, they have a physical-based range assist that essentially in a small bubble around them, they can essentially attack with a long-range spear attack as a little bit of a callback to the Soldier Legions from Ogre Battle 64, as well as just to have that as a different little mechanical thing. But whenever they get into an actual combat thing, while they can use their spear for their priority attack, most of their fighting happens with that sword there, which I think the combination of the different weapons there could lead to some really fun builds, and also could lead to a situation where somebody is, for example, running a, let's say, Crimson Sarissa and Crimson Sword at the same time, potentially a high recovery anti-cav kind of infantry sort of situation. I just think it would be a really fun idea for a class. Now, granted, I know realistically that's not something we're going to see, but it's just a cool thing to think about, you know? Anyway, so that's kind of about that. And also, if you're wondering what this game is in the background, this is Kingsbane. Really, really good game if you're also just looking for more very unique strategy RPGs to scratch that itch. Similarly to, you know how I kept saying Unicorn Overlord is very similar to Dark Souls? Imagine, again, if you take that same mentality, except it's more like in the Tactics Ogre vein of things now, where you're still doing the whole exploring and going around the world thing, except now you're like freezing puddles and stuff like that for traversing your overworld and doing a bunch of puzzles and such. Anyway, so that's my little ramble for today. I hope y'all find it interesting, and yeah, I will see you in the next one. Y'all take care.